AskReddit, when did the I crave attention kid go too far? Girl I knew brought a snake in her bra. Like a full-sized pet one. That's right, in her bra. How nobody noticed movement in her shirt, I'd. She took it out at lunch and the biology teachers confiscated it and gave it back to her at the end of the day. She told them her mom was gonna take it away, so she wanted to keep it safe. Then 3 hours later she tells everyone on Facebook that her mom wasn't really going to take it away, it was a social experiment. Unfortunately I did not get to witness the actual snake retrieval. I used to work a boys and girls club. There was one particular girl who was around 7-8. She came in one day with a bruise. Told the lady at the counter that her mom abused her. CPS and cops were called. Determined that no, mom did not beat her. In fact, mom was very freaked out and worried about it. A couple days later the girl runs up to me and another worker with a busted lip and blackish eye. Fresh. She told us that another kid beat her up. We go to look on the cameras. I shit you not, this girl tells the other kid that he or she, I can't remember which, was gonna get into big trouble for refusing to play with her. She proceeds to run into the wall several times. When that didn't do much, she takes a broom handle and literally jabs her eye with it. Repeatedly. Then, once she has a black eye, she bites her lip to make it bleed. Then she runs out to tell on said kid. What happened next as I was scheduled to do my lifeguarding duty. Last I heard, she hasn't come back. I sure hope she was put in a mental ward or some shit. Kid was psycho. Had this girl in middle school who would purposely make up crazy lies. E.G. said she was related to Nicki Minaj, for the sake of impressing her classmates. The thing is, after a while, we all figured it was a load of crap, but silently agreed to just nod our heads whenever she came to share another jaw-dropping story. Well, turns out our tolerance created this illusion that her plan was working, and she must have felt as if she was getting the attention she craved, which worsened the situation. We were in 7th grade at the time. She was crushing real bad on a dude that was a year older. Instead of walking up to him and trying to befriend the kid, she makes a whole fake Instagram account which she used to DM him. Set up a different name and surname. Found a hot model with a relatively small following, and used her to catfish the guy. She'd post these photos on her feed, not necessarily send it to him directly going, "Hey, this is me." They began texting, like everyday type of thing. He'd send her good morning and good night selfies, and she took ages to reply because she was constantly searching for a fitting picture. This fake girl was supposedly from a whole other state. They kept texting for several months. Nobody knew except for me and a few other people from our class. But we weren't spreading the story. To be honest, I wasn't very interested anyway. Well, turned out the guy had booked plane tickets to go visit the non-existent hot chick he's been talking to non-stop. He flew to a completely different state hoping to meet the love of his life in person, had relatives there I'm pretty sure, so he stayed with them. He shared all this with the fake girl after landing. Yeah? She had to confess and tell him about everything. The girl moved schools after that and her story spread like a wildfire. Not sure what went on with the guy. Note: they did call, Skype, he heard her real voice, but since they never shared a word in person he didn't recognize her from anywhere. Never video chatted though. To be honest with you, I have no clue how she managed to keep up with her own lies for several months before being forced to end it. Thinking back on this is more bizarre than I originally remember it being. I knew this girl in high school who was the queen of obnoxious and attention-seeking behavior. She was constantly trying to get people's attention, from screaming loudly in the hall to crying hard over sad memes at lunch. She was so annoying, but unfortunately, many people bought and fed into her histrionics. Let's call her Cryface. I never really liked Cryface. She came off as fake and kind of rude. I tried to ignore her for the most part, but the absolute turning point for me was her over-the-top behavior at a choir concert junior year. It was 20 minutes before the concert was set to begin, and all the kids were practicing getting on the risers, about 100 people. Suddenly, Cryface's mom entered the auditorium, briskly walked to the director, and whispered something in his ear. The director nodded, and called Cryface off the riser. When Cryface got down, the mom whispered something to her. All of a sudden, Cryface let out a blood-curdling scream and ran for the auditorium exit. She got halfway before collapsing to the ground wailing. She kept yelling, "Oh my god, oh hi, oh my god," over and over again. The mom came up behind her, pulled her up by the elbow, and rushed out. Naturally, everyone in the choir thought something horrible had happened. Some friends had texted her, but Cryface would only respond with cryptic messages like "nothing will ever be the same and why couldn't it have been me?" Rumor spread that her father and little sister had burned to death in a car wreck. With a reaction like that, what else could it be? People were talking about organizing a carpool to attend the funeral and taking friendship shifts so someone would always be available to comfort her. I even agreed to a couple shifts. Hell, the entire choir said a group prayer for her before the concert. And this was at a public school. We were all so worried. Now, these thoughts would have been incredibly kind. If that was what happened. But nope. Turns out Cryface's little sister was diagnosed with diabetes. The sister didn't go to the hospital. She didn't get sick and need medical attention. The family had only received the call that the scheduled medical tests came back positive for diabetes. The mom came to tell Cryface because the family had decided to skip the choir concert so they could meet with the doctor and talk about the medical diagnosis. TLDR, girl finds out her little sister has diabetes and might get more attention than her. So girl makes high school choir think her family died in a car wreck. Not the worst thing ever. But way back in middle school. I was about 3 football fields away from the school itself. It had a large grass field behind it that we occasionally had to run to the end on, and the friend I was with passed out. I carried her back to the school, and the moment I got to the nurse's office she was miraculously better and felt fine. He was a jerk. I had a couple of pet goats and he would come over and bully them all the time. He'd poke them through the fence with sticks, throw rocks at them, spook them with loud noises ... but he'd never go into the pen. He was too scared of them. He should have known better. He was 16. One day we're all inside and we hear this blood-curdling scream. In comes the kid, screaming at the top of his lungs. The goat. The goat is after me. Help. We turn to see the big billy goat staring at him through the sliding glass door. Every once in a while it'd headbutt the glass. Now this was a very docile animal. He'd have never hurt a fly ... but he was out for that boy's blood. It turns out that the kid had been torturing the goat. He had him pinned up against the wall of the pen, throwing rocks and sticks at its testicles to see if he could hit them. The goat came after him, scaled the fence, and chased him across 3 acres of land and into the house. The kid waited for 2 hours for the goat to go away, but it never did. Anytime he opened a door to try to sneak away, the goat was right there trying to attack him. Eventually the goat disappeared and the kid tried to sneak out a window feet first ... and once again started screaming, because the goat was right there headbutting his backside as he climbed out. It was absolutely liberating. Faked her own kidnapping as a senior prank. Even got the attention of Amber Alert. Edit, my bad. Didn't give the whole story. I was being a lazy shit when I posted this, but here is my recollection of events. Well, this is from my freshman year of HS, was told by a relative who was a senior at the time, and that was a while ago, so some parts may be fuzzy. Here we go. So that year many of the senior pranks were the usual generic things, toilet paper, the works. So this girl had this great idea for a prank and to be a standout. Faking her own kidnapping. Shortly after school one day in late May she called, texted her parents, and friends that were overtly, hysterically telling them that a stranger shoved her in a truck and drove off. She said she was scared and please help her. The parents and friends wasted no time and immediately notified police. Eventually the Amber Alert was issued. She was later tracked down and found that evening. Turns out she was at the next city over hanging out at her BF's house. She confessed and was promptly arrested. The following day it was discussed primarily by the upperclassmen and didn't make it to the freshman class until 6th period 2 days later. A girl once punched herself in the gut at her little brother's B-day party and threw up just so people would notice her. Little brother is a few years younger than me. He used to come into my room to harass me all the time and my parents never allowed me to have a lock. He was around 10 when I started propping a piano stand under my doorknob to keep people out. I'm so sick of people saying it was a fire hazard. You'd use whatever you could to if your parents never knocked and your brother used to shoot you with airsoft guns. Little brother pushed the door and the piano stand was at the knob. I ignored it before all I heard was the loudest bang followed by a thud. I opened the door to see him laying on the floor, holding his face, and crying. Apparently, he decided that he could break down my door like in the movies by throwing himself against it after running from down the hall. But, this dumbass didn't just throw his shoulder or kick it. He threw his entire body against it like a squirrel going for a tree. Arms and legs out. Face fucking first. I got blamed for it but it was worth it. Only time I ever laughed that hard at his expense again was when he tried to fart into my room and shat himself about 2 years later. Started angrily pumping weights when we were chilling at someone's house, threatened to shave his head and then tore his shirt off of his body. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you liked today's video please consider giving it a like and subscribing for future videos. If you want more right now, click on one of the cards on the screen to watch another one of my videos. Thanks again for watching. Please stay safe everyone, until next time.